Welcome to the History in the Shadow. Please subscribe US if you like our videos. Let's start the main story. Scotland, ancient civilization. Imagine a land where the wind carries whispers of forgotten heroes, where rugged cliffs guard secrets older than the stars, and where every stone tells a story of survival and mystery. Welcome to ancient Scotland, a tapestry of ice, blood, and legend woven over millennia. From the first footprints of Mesolithic wanderers to the war-painted Picts who defied empires. This is a journey through time that will hook your imagination and leave you hungry for more. Let's step into the mist and unravel the untold epic of Scotland's ancient civilization. Our story begins around 12,000 years ago, at the tail end of the last ice age. Glaciers that once crushed the land like a giant's fist began to melt, revealing a rugged paradise of fjords, lochs, and rolling heathers. The first humans, Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, arrived on these shores, likely crossing land bridges from Europe or paddling primitive boats across treacherous seas. These were no ordinary nomads. They were masters of survival. Armed with flint-tipped spears and bone hooks, they tracked red deer through tangled forests, fished salmon in crystal lochs, and gathered wild berries under midnight suns. Archaeological finds, like the flint scrapers at Hadrian in South Lanarkshire, show their campsites dotted along coasts and rivers, where they warmed themselves by crackling fires. Their tools, chipped with precision, were more than utensils. They were the keys to tame a wild land. Picture a family huddled in a makeshift shelter of animal hides, sharing stories of the great beasts that roamed the mist, their breath visible in the chill dawn. By 4000 BC, the Neolithic era dawned like a green sunrise. These ancients weren't just wanderers anymore. They were farmers, engineers, and visionaries. They cleared forests with polished stone axes, planted barley and wheat in fertile valleys, and herded cattle that grazed like royalty on lush plains. Their communities grew roots, and with roots came monuments that still defy time. Enter Skara Brae, a Stone Age village on Orkney Islands, built around 3100 BC. This wasn't just a settlement. It was a marvel. 10 houses, carved from sandstone, with drainage systems and furniture like stone beds and dressers. Each home had a central hearth where families cooked meals of fish and venison, lit by whale oil lamps that cast shadows on walls decorated with carved spirals. Skara Brae, buried by sand for centuries until a storm unveiled it in 1850. Is Europe's oldest preserved village, a snapshot of a people who turned harsh winds into home. But the Neolithic Scots didn't stop at villages. They built monuments that screamed their ambition to the heavens. Take the standing Stones of Callanish on the Isle of Lewis, erected around 2900 BC. These towering slabs, some over 15 feet tall, form a cruciform circle aligned with the solstice sun. Were they temples for druidic rituals, where priests in feathered cloaks chanted to ancient gods, or astronomical observatories, tracking the moon's path to predict seasons? Archaeologists debate, but the stone's precision suggests a people who read the cosmos like a book. Imagine a solstice gathering, drums pounding, fires blazing, and elders reciting myths of creation as the sun kisses the horizon. Other sites, like the ring of Brochs or Maze How Itum where sunlight pierces the inner chamber on winter solstice, reveal a culture obsessed with time, death, and the eternal dance of stars. As the Bronze Age dawned around 2000 BC, Scotland's ancients learned to forge metal, and with it, power. Copper and tin, traded from far off Cornwall or Iberia, were melted into axes, daggers, and jewelry that gleamed like sunfire. Chieftains, draped in gold torques and bronze armlets, ruled from hilltops, their wealth buried in mounds alongside chariots and ornate swords. The Clava cairns in Inverness, built around this time, are stone tombs with cup-marked rocks and passage graves aligned with the heavens. Here, the dead were laid with ceremony, their bodies wrapped in wool, surrounded by offerings of pottery and bone pins. Picture a funeral. Mourners chanting under a blood-red sky, torches casting flickering shadows on stones carved with mysterious symbols. These weren't just burials. They were portals to another world, where ancestors watched over the living. The Bronze Age also brought trade and tension. Scotland's coasts buzzed with boats carrying amber from the Baltic and jet from Yorkshire. But with wealth came warfare. Hill forts, like Taponoth, sprang up, earth and timber strongholds where warriors in leather tunics guarded against raids. Imagine a chieftain, his face painted with ochre, leading a warband armed with bronze spears against rival clans. Battles were brutal, yet art flourished, bronze cauldrons decorated with spirals, gold lunuli worn by elite women, and rock art etched with axes and ships, hinting at a culture that honored both war and beauty. By 700 BC, the Iron Age ignited a new fire. Iron, tougher than bronze, forged swords and plows that transformed Scotland. This was the era of the Picts, the painted ones, whose name comes from their tattooed bodies, covered in blue woad that made them look like living myths. The Picts were no mere barbarians. They were engineers and warriors who built Brochs, towering, dry stone roundhouses that stood like sentinels. Take Musa Broch in Shetland, a 40-foot giant with double walls and hidden passageways, perfect for ambushing enemies. These were the skyscrapers of their day, housing families, livestock, and secrets. Archaeologists found looms and querns inside, proving women wove wool and ground grain while warriors plotted. Picture a Broch at night, smoke curling from a central hearth, children listening to elders tell of sea monsters and heroes. The Picts' true legend, though, was their defiance of Rome. When Roman legions invaded Britain in 43 AD, they met little resistance in the south. But Scotland? A nightmare. The Caledonii, likely a Pictish tribe, ambushed legions in forests, their warriors wielding long iron swords and shields painted with serpents. In 83 AD, at the Battle of Mons Graupius, Roman governor Agricola claimed victory. But the Picts melted into the highlands, unconquered. Emperor Hadrian built his famous wall in 122 AD, not to keep Picts out, but to mark where Rome's ambitions stopped. The Antonine Wall, further north, failed to hold them either. Pictish symbol stones, slabs carved with boars, eagles, and mysterious mirrors, dot the landscape, their meaning still a puzzle. Were they battle markers, clan sigils, or shamanic portals? One stone, the Dunatar slab, shows a warrior with a spear, hinting at a culture that celebrated defiance. The Picts weren't alone. Celtic tribes, like the Votadini and Damnonii, built crannigs, artificial islands on lochs, with timber houses linked by causeways. Imagine a warrior rowing to his crannig under starlight, his boat laden with spoils from a raid. These tribes traded with Romans, exchanging furs for wine and glass, yet never bowed. Their druids, shrouded in white robes, held sway over spirits and men, sacrificing to gods like Lugus in sacred groves. Oral tales spoke of heroes like Finn Mac Cumhale, a giant hunter whose legends later inspired Irish epics. Warriors wore checkered cloaks, their claymores, two-handed swords, glinting in battle. Women, too, held power. Some, like Queen Boudica in the south, led armies, their hair braided with beads of jet. As the Iron Age waned, new shadows emerged. Vikings from Norway raided coasts in long ships, their axes cleaving Pictish defenses by 800 AD. Yet the Norsemen left more than blood. Runestones in Orkney, red-haired descendants, and tales of sea kings blended with Celtic myths. The Gaels, arriving from Ireland around 500 AD, brought Christianity and a new tongue. Their kingdom of Dal Riata in Argyll, with its capital at Dunad, was a melting pot of Celtic and Pictish blood. Warriors carved boar-shaped rocks, their kings crowned on sacred stones. Imagine a coronation. A Gaelic king, his torque gleaming, swearing oaths on a footprint-carved slab as monks chant Latin hymns. By the 9th century, a new hero rose, Kenneth Mac Alpin, a Gaelic warrior with Pictish blood. In 843 AD, he united the Picts and Scots, forging Alba, the seed of modern Scotland. His court at Scone, near the mythic Stone of Destiny, saw chieftains swear loyalty under threat of his iron blade. But unity was fragile. Viking raids continued, burning monasteries like Iona, where monks hid golden crosses in caves. Yet Scotland endured, its people blending Pictish mystery, Celtic fire, and Norse grit into a nation that would defy invaders for centuries. This was no mere land of barbarians. Ancient Scots built a civilization of stone and spirit, where monuments aligned with stars, warriors painted their skin with war, and poets sang of heroes whose names echo in the wind. From Skara Brae's hearths to Dunatar's cliffs, their legacy is a puzzle of courage and craft. Archaeologists still dig, finding pottery shards and iron spearheads that hint at untold stories. Were the Picts shamans who spoke to spirits? Did druids sacrifice to storm gods in Callanish's shadow? The answers lie buried, waiting for a curious mind. Walk Scotland's moors today, and you'll feel it, the pulse of a people who turned rock into eternity. The Brochs stand silent, but their stones scream of battles and dreams. The standing circles, like Callanish, still catch the solstice sun, as if time never moved. This is a land where myth and history dance, where every hill hides a tale of blood and glory. What secrets do the ancients still guard? What lost kingdoms lie beneath your feet? Join us next time as we chase more shadows of the past. What would you give to stand among those stones, hearing the drums of a forgotten age? Comment below and tell us which part of Scotland's saga hooked you most. Subscribe us for more journeys into the heart of history, where the past isn't dead, it's just waiting to be found.